There's a Russian island at 80 degrees north, way up here, all by itself, that has a kind of interesting history. Many of you commented about this place, and when I zoomed in on it, it looked really weird at first. Part of the island was cut off on the side, and when I zoomed in even further, there appeared to be some buildings there, and potentially something at the top of the ice cap. So in this video, we're going to explore Victoria Island, learn about its history, and see what kind of stuff we can find out about it. Let's explore. By the late 1800s, we had pretty much got the entire world mapped out. But a lot of these really far north islands had yet to be discovered, including Victoria Island, which wasn't even discovered until 1898. The first people to discover it in 1898 were a group of Norwegian sealers named Johannes Nilsen and Ludvig Bernard Sabulonsen. But literally one day after that, another guy, Nilsen, also saw it, and he saw it in his steam yacht named Victoria, hence the name Victoria Island. But for like 20 years, no one really cared about this place. It's just a cold, isolated island way up here, so no country even claimed it. However, in 1920, the Spitsbergen Treaty, now known as the Svalbard Treaty, gave Norway ownership of any lands between 10 degrees east and 35 degrees east, and within 74 degrees north and 81 degrees north. That basically encompasses all of Svalbard and some of the outlying islands, but it just barely misses Victoria Island over here. Victoria Island is at 80 degrees north, but 36 degrees east. So it kind of left Victoria Island in a weird spot all by itself. The 1920s were an important time for a lot of Arctic expeditions, and in 1926, the Soviets claimed it as well as the Franz Josef land over here. But Norway did not like this and wanted to get these lands to themselves as well. In 1929, the same guy that financed the annexation of Bouvet Island, Lars Christensen, also sent a crew out to Victoria Island and Franz Josef land to try to pursue these islands as well. But they never even stood a chance as the ice completely stopped them. A couple years passed, and in 1929, Professor Otto Schmidt declared Franz Josef Land as part of the USSR by raising a flag on Hooker Island, which is this one right here. Norway did give in to that claim, but still wanted to pursue Victoria Island. So, in 1930, a kind of secret expedition happened. Gunnar Horn and his crew took the MS Bratvaag to supposedly study glaciers and hunt seals in this area. But there was probably a more secret reason for this expedition, not just to hunt seals and look at glaciers, but they wanted to claim Victoria Island once and for all. And on August 8th, 1930, in the very early morning hours, his crew actually made it to Victoria Island, which did look a lot different back then. The ice cap was a lot larger. And they raised a sign on the beach and left a bunch of equipment, like wood and nails and hammers, to build a hut here. But it doesn't seem like it was ever actually built. Now, Norway at the time did not actually say that this was an official attempt to claim Victoria Island, but it probably was, and they just didn't want to say it to not upset the Soviets. So that expedition was kind of a failure for claiming Victoria Island, and in 1932, the USSR officially claimed Victoria Island once and for all on their Soviet research vessel. And nowadays, Victoria Island belongs to Russia. But that Bratvaag expedition that the Norwegians did wasn't a complete failure. They spent a lot of the time on the expedition on this island called White Island, really close to Victoria. So let's back up a little bit again. In 1897, there were 3 people, including Salomon Andree, that wanted to take a hydrogen balloon on an expedition to reach the North Pole. Now, this was a big deal at the time, and he had a lot of funding from people in Sweden, and there was a lot of hope for this expedition that it would work. They used kind of a new steering method at the time, which wasn't really proven to work, but they were confident that they could make it all the way up there. And on July 11th, they actually took off from this little island right here, called Danes Island in Svalbard. But immediately, things started to not go well. They lost their drag ropes really soon, and the balloon started leaking hydrogen at a lot higher rate than they anticipated. And literally 2 or 3 days later, they crashed on the Arctic ice, and they're far from the path that they wanted to be on. Now, they actually did survive for like 2 months out on the Arctic ice, trekking around, using what resources they had. But it was a terrible way to live. As you can imagine, there's not a lot of fresh food way up here in the Arctic, and once they ran out of their own rations, they had to rely on hunting different animals up here, like polar bears, and over like 2 months, they slowly succumbed to scurvy, which is losing vitamin C, which is a necessary vitamin you get usually from certain types of fruits. Vitamin C deficiency is a huge problem for sailors at the time, and especially for these guys who didn't have any fresh fruits to eat. And it basically causes you to bruise really easy, your skin kind of tears off, your joints start to hurt, your wounds don't heal, and that's the biggest thing, is like your wounds will just not really heal at all. And this can actually cause death if you don't get enough vitamin C over a long period of time. They also probably got food poisoning from eating undercooked polar bear meat, and just the extreme cold and conditions caused their downfall. But no one even knew where they ended up, and it's kind of a mystery for like 33 years until that expedition we just talked about, the Bratvaag expedition to go explore Victoria Island and White Island up here, actually happened to discover the remains of that expedition. Now, they found them on this island right here, which is Norway's White Island. They discovered a bunch of metal sticking out of the snow. They found the partial skeleton of someone, which potentially had bear bites in it. And they found stuff that identified the body as being from Andree. They even found a diary, but the diary was extremely frozen over and it was very difficult to open it. They brought all this stuff back down to Tromsø in Norway and finally solved that mystery. There's a bunch of other videos from really good YouTubers that I'll link down in the description that you can watch about this expedition. They go a lot more in depth on how they survived and the different things that happened. Fast forward to 1959, and USSR actually built a station up here, which you can actually see in Google Maps. The problem is in Google Maps is this is not in super high quality, and they actually cut off part of the island, and Google Earth is no better. So I'm going to switch over to Apple Maps so we can see this in better detail. It's really difficult to find on Apple Maps because it doesn't just show up immediately, but if you zoom in on this dark patch, it will eventually show up. And there it is. So this is a relatively new picture, but before the 1990s, this island was completely covered in an ice cap, besides just a little bit on the north shore. And the ice cap has slowly begun to regress and show different parts of the island. But anyways, if we look up at the base here, you can see a bunch of different buildings. And keep in mind, this is at 80 degrees north. This is really, really far away from everything. And there's not just one little hut, like when we looked at Meehan Island in Canada. There's a bunch of different buildings with a bunch of barrels, possibly walruses or seals over here. And there's even other barrels down here. And when I was looking into this polar station, usually around 2 to 5 people lived here at any given time. And this was a very important area for the USSR's air defense in the 1980s and early 90s. There wasn't just buildings here. If you look way up on the ice cap, you can actually see what appears to be a building way up here because of its shadow being pretty square. And this appears to be right on the top of the ice cap, around 105 meters or 344 feet high. But in 1994, this station was pretty much abandoned, and that was only a few years after the collapse of the USSR. And today it seems to just be kind of a wasteland without much activity, but there does seem to be expeditions that go up there today. And it looks like if you have enough money, you can actually come up here on a private expedition and look around the base. Now, other than that, there's really not very much information on this place. There is a pretty decent video of someone coming up to this place and exploring it, which I'll link it down in the description. The video is in Russian, so I wasn't able to really understand what he was saying. And today, a bunch of polar bears, white gulls, and walruses live on this island. And even on Google Maps, there's really no information about this place either. One reviewer says, very nice island, very tropical, and you can see dolphins and seagulls, palm trees, delicious coconut. Definitely recommend for a family vacation. So I'll definitely keep that in mind if I want to travel up here. But yeah, that's about it about Victoria Island that I could find. I'm sure there's more stuff on the internet out there. But that's the main history of this place. And if you enjoyed this video, check out this one in the bottom left corner. Thanks so much for watching.